Hello, everybody. It's Deelle, and I am here solo tonight without my Julia. So yeah, I'm just gonna wait a couple minutes just to see if anyone joins us. And I will be talking about grief tonight, and I will warn you that we may have a BBC News moment here because my son has just gone to bed and there may be a possibility that he comes charging into the room. So if that's the case, just don't mind. He's just on his way to bed, so I'll just wait another minute or so. Being like Ricky, and I'm just sitting here smiling. I always have a hard time with that. Ricky doesn't seem to have a problem with that at all. Okay, well, I just looked at my clock up here on my Facebook Live and it said 111. So I think I'm just going to get started. I'm just going to start talking. And again, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to write them in the comment box and I'll get to those. So I was really called to talk about grief tonight because I've dealt with it in the past, but I've also been dealing with it recently. So I felt really called to talk about it. And it's kind of a subject that, it can be very sad and very painful, but it's also a subject that we really need to start shining a little bit of light on so that when we do go through the grieving process, we kind of know what to expect and we can be a little bit more kind to ourselves. So, grief it's a painful part of our life, but it's something that we all experience. Some of us are lucky that we haven't experienced it yet, but some of us have, or some of us will soon experience grief at some point in our life. And grief is very individual. So what I'm going to be talking tonight, I'm going to definitely be going through the stages of grief, and just keep that in mind that it is very, very individual, okay? Interpret it really loosely. The stages that I go through, you could experience them all, you could experience some of them, so just keep that in mind. And when it comes to grief, we experience grief when we find out somebody is terminally ill. If a person dies, a pet in our lives dies, a significant other leaves us. But you can also experience it, say, like if you were to move to a new city, or if you were to get a new job, or if you were to actually retire from a job that you worked in a long time. A lot of people experience grief in those areas as well. So, in grief, it can last days, it can last weeks, it can last years. Again, very individual. It's very different for every person. So, again, I just wanted to kind of go through all this stuff because I just want, when we experience grief to understand the stages so that we can be really, really kind to ourselves. So I think I'm going to start with just my experience actually with grief. And I had grandparents that unfortunately had died at one point, so experienced grief in that way. But I'm also going to talk about a subject that I've never really talked about before. And it's a subject that I used to push way back into my mind, so I would never have to think about it. And that turned out to be the wrong thing to do, obviously, but it was just I didn't really understand the stages of grief, and I really lost my way during this whole process. So when I was younger, I never ever wanted to be a mom. I had no motherly instinct in my body whatsoever. When I was younger, I never wanted to babysit or anything like that. So when I was 23, I actually became pregnant. And it was a shock because obviously it was not planned and I wasn't ever expecting to become a mom. But it was also a shock because I had had an accident actually years earlier where I fractured my pelvis. So doctors had always told me that I wasn't going to be able to get pregnant. So it was a shock on many ways. During that time, I was young, but I had a boyfriend, I had a career, and so there wasn't any reason for me to not be able to carry this child and care for this child. And actually, when I became pregnant, my mind really shifted, and I became motherly, which was very shocking because I had never wanted that before that time. So unfortunately, as the pregnancy went on, close to about the 3-month mark or so, I found out that the baby was terminally ill. She had a severe case of spina bifida, and there was nothing that we could do. So I was faced with making a really, really tough decision at a very young age. So my decision, what I had to choose to give birth to a child that was just going to die or would already be dead, or I could kind of go through it's similar to like an abortion process, basically. And, that's a decision that no one ever wants to make. And it was such an awful time, and being so young, and I lived in a city. I didn't have a lot of family support or anything. It was a really, really difficult time. But after struggling, I came to a decision, and the way that I came to my decision was I had read a story. And I had read a story about a certain couple that was going through the same situation. And what they wanted to do was they wanted to save the giving birth process for life and for happiness. So they chose to not give birth to their child. They chose the abortion road, that really resonated with me. And I believe truly in my heart that I too wanted to save giving birth for life and for happiness. So that's why I made the decision that I did. And that was so hard. And, it's something that I still will struggle with to this day. And, but I've learned to kind of work through it, obviously. But after having to make that decision and being so young, I really, really, really lost my way. Because I didn't understand the grieving process. I didn't understand what I was feeling. I knew that I was very depressed, and I knew that I wanted a way out. So at that point, I started to turn to drugs and alcohol to cope. Because I didn't want to think about it. I didn't want to deal with it. And I didn't understand the stages of grief, which, depression and like wanting, unable to cope, like those are definitely the grieving process. But I didn't understand, and I just really, really, really lost my way. I began to, lash out at everyone, and then became really withdrawn. And I really, really struggled immensely. I really, really did. And once I actually started to reach out for help, that's when things kind of started to change. So I just wanted to kind of give you a little bit of an idea of the type of grief that I was dealing with. And another one that I've been dealing with recently is we have had to put our 10-year-old dog to sleep, which was a really, really hard decision to do as well. She was in my life for many years. I actually had got her when I lived in Montreal, and she traveled all over the place with me. And so that was that hit me much, much harder than I expected, because it's a pet, and there's some people out there that think oh, that's kind of silly that you'd have that strong of a reaction towards a pet. But I mean, it's a love connection. And when that love connection is broken, you mourn that. So, and being at the stage that I'm at right now and understanding grief, I was actually able to work through the grief of the dog a little bit easier. I learned to kind of be very kind to myself, and I learned to go through the emotions and allow them to happen. So, and another thing is those are my situations of dealing with grief. But I know that I'm setting myself up for having to deal with grief in the future as well. So I know my parents are aging, my in-laws are aging, my uncles, my aunts. I know that I'm going to be faced with losing loved ones, and just being able again to understand the stages of grief and just understand them so I can be kind to myself when it happens. That's really what I'm trying to set myself up for, and I'm trying to hopefully help someone out there go through the process just a little bit easier. So you may have heard before of the 5 stages of grief. I personally resonate with 7, and I am going to be going over the 7 stages right now, actually. So I'm going to just dive right into that. So the first one, and again, these aren't in any particular order. The order that I have them in is the order that I've actually experienced them. But again, remember I said at the beginning, grief is very, very individual, and you might go through one stage, not the other. You might go through them in this exact order or a different order. Again, totally individual. So let me just start. I'm going to number them, but again, like I said, they're not in any particular order. So number 1 I have is shock and denial. And shock is like the emotional protection, because it saves us from being too overwhelmed at once. It's that disbelief stage, that stage where, you cannot believe that this is happening or that this had happened. It's very, very, very difficult stage, as these all are. The second one is pain and guilt. And this one is the unbelievable pain and suffering, the excruciating and unbearable process of this pain and guilt. It feels, in this stage of grief, things feel very chaotic during this time. And you really do wonder, am I going to survive? How am I going to get through this? It just is excruciating, the pain. This is where a lot of people will want to escape, and they can escape through, in my situation, I used drugs and alcohol. I was stuck in this stage. I just wanted to escape. I didn't want to feel the emotions. And that's what's really important about this stage, is not hiding, not running away. It's actually dealing with the feeling and feeling those feelings, and just allowing yourself to go through that emotion and understand that that's okay, and to, like I said, not run away. And that's what I really struggled with. I really, I wanted it to all go away. I didn't want to deal with it. And I coped with it the best way that I could, being at the age that I was. I just turned to drugs and alcohol, which obviously wasn't the best way to deal with that. And it's also, in this stage, you end up going through the coulda, shoulda, woulda. So the deep remorse, you think about, if I would have done that, or if I would have done this, or I should have done that. So in my situation, when it came to my baby being so sick and terminally ill, I was like, oh my gosh, like if I would have ate better, or if I would have, drank more water, or if I would have taken more vitamins, or, you really, really are very not kind to yourself in this part. And, I was really, really rough on myself. And even when it came to having to put the dog down. It was the same thing. It was like, oh my God, if I would have taken her to the vet more, or if I, she was suffering from heart failure and she had a little bit of a cough. Oh, I should have, brought her into the vet earlier when I first heard that cough instead of thinking it was normal. And, so it's a stage that you're just really, really hard on yourself just because the pain is so excruciating. The next one I have as number 3 is anger. And this is where relationships that you are currently in can really be stretched, and really could be really suffer. The relationship can really suffer in this stage. And, you lash out, you blame, your frustration often leads to a lot of anger. And, this is the time when you start kind of pushing people away. So the people that are actually close to you in your life. So you're lashing out at them. You end up having like all of these bottled up emotions, because before the stage before, it's so excruciating, the pain, and you just have all these different emotions running through your body. And this is just where those bottled up emotions, it's like the volcano, it just kind of explodes and comes out. And it's also at the stage where you really question, why me? Why me? Why did I have to go through this? Why? It's a very, very, like I said, all these stages are just very sad. But the next one would be the depression, reflection, and the loneliness stage of grief, which is, it's almost like you get to this period of grief where you kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel, like you start to kind of feel better, and then all of a sudden, like, bam, this sadness takes over, this depression. So this is a stage where a lot of people will try to talk you out of how you feel. And an important note here is that if you're ever dealing with someone who's going through the grieving process, it's really, really important to not feel like you need to save the person. And I actually referred to this as the white horse syndrome, where I wrote about it in the past in the newsletter. But what the white horse syndrome is that when you feel the need to ride in on your white horse and pick up the person that's suffering and ride off into the sunset towards puppies and rainbows and happiness and everything. And that's really, really not our job. And especially when it comes to dealing with grief. And it's really, really important to not try to save anybody. Your job, really, when you're helping someone through the grieving process, especially in this stage of it, is to just be there. Just, we have to be comfortable with people being uncomfortable. So we're not trying to pull them out of this and save them from these feelings, because they do really need to feel them. We just have to be there, be kind of that constant support, like bring them meals, or call them, or just let them know that, that you're thinking about them, and not trying to convince them out of how they're feeling or anything like that. Because encouragement in this stage, it really isn't helpful at all. So just keep that in mind. Just keep that in mind that, you don't want to try to save anybody that's in this stage. And this is a stage where you actually realize the gravity of your loss. There's an emptiness. There's this despair. You also feel like you want to isolate yourself. And during that isolation, you spend a lot of time like in some deep reflection. This is a time where you start kind of focusing on the memories. And, just thinking about that person or that job or whatever, however you're dealing with grief, or for whatever reason you're dealing with grief. The next one would be number 5, and it's the upward turn. And this is when life starts to become much calmer. You're starting to adjust to a new life, and you feel a little bit more organized in your life. Your depression starts to fade. If you've had any physical symptoms like stomach issues or feeling really tired, like those physical symptoms really start to fade away. And that's a nice shift from all of the really rough emotions that we were feeling before. This is a really nice change. So, and that kind of brings you to the next one, which is number 6, and it's the reconstruction and the working through. So your mind starts to become more functional, and you start to become really like clear-minded, almost like level-headed. So, when it comes to, say, like a death of a loved one, this is when you can start actually coming up with realistic solutions to problems, where it could be like financial things, financial issues, maybe like mortgages or loans or anything like that. This is when your mind can actually start to kind of process that stuff, and to, just to be, like I said, really more functional. You're starting to reconstruct yourself and reconstruct your new identity, your new identity without this person in your life, or this pet, or this job, or whatever. You're reconstructing this new identity. For me, I remember this stage, going through grief with the baby, and we had bought a lot of like furniture and things like that. And when I actually got to this working through stage of my grief, that was when I was able to I could let go of the furniture. I donated the furniture to someone else in need. And then when it came to our dog dying, I actually got to the point where I donated all of her stuff to the SPCA. So I actually got to the point where I was more functional, and my brain was just really clear, and I was able to, just work through these problems and in a realistic way. So the next one is acceptance and hope. This is number 7. Acceptance and hope. So, this is when you're actually really, really able to accept your new reality. This is the part where you may begin to see the lesson. You begin to understand the spiritual explanation for your experience. So, like, we're never given anything that we can't handle. Our life is planned out for us before we get here, like these types of things. You're able to really accept those things and understand. You also start really looking forward to the future. You find life again. You can think about that person or that pet or that job without sadness and pain. Just like I said, like it's really like finding life again, and like this huge weight just is lifted, and it's just it's amazing when you can actually get to this point. And it's not that you don't feel sad at times or whatever when you're going back into the memories and stuff of this person or pet or job, whatever. It's just that you're not living in that sadness anymore. You're able to think about them and not get choked up and not get teary-eyed and things like that. So I guess a couple of just like a little bit of final points about grief is I just want to, grief is part of life. It fucking sucks. It sucks, but you know what? We've come to this planet to experience emotions. We can only experience emotions here. That's why we're here. It's the only place we can do that. And our emotions are so important to feel. Even when you're in those early stages of grief, like it's really, really important to feel those emotions, because our emotions and our experiences in life is really what guides us towards becoming the best version of ourselves. We need these things. They're very important. It's just we need to have a level of understanding where we don't end up being pulled down by them and living in the grief, the pain, and the desperation. There's immense value to emotion, and there's immense value to painful emotion. These situations and experiences, they do provide us with the greatest lessons that we need to move forward as we want to become the best version of ourselves. So, when I think about like my situation with the baby, I think back to, I didn't want to be a mom before I got pregnant, the surprise pregnancy. I didn't want that in my life. And, with my excruciating grief that came along with that situation of dealing with a baby that died, also came this strong desire for me to be a mom. So my daughter and that situation made me want to be a mom. And I'm a mom today to like the greatest little boy that you could just ever imagine. And if I didn't experience that situation and experience that painful grief and the painful experience of the drugs and the alcohol and that whole situation, I would have never been a mom. Maybe I would never been in this situation right now. So with the acceptance and the hope is when I was able to understand the spiritual reason for everything happening. I was level-headed enough to go, okay, I get it now. I know why I've gone through that. I know the value in these emotions. And I mean, it's so powerful, to think that, with that grief came this amazing opportunity that I probably would have never ever experienced hadn't I gone through that. So I know that that's kind of hard to wrap your head around, especially if you're kind of like in the early stages of grief where things are just really unbearable. But, there comes a time when you reach that acceptance and hope level or stage of the grief, and life really starts to become beautiful again. And, I just also want to mention too is that if you're going through the grieving process, and if you're in that stage where like things are just really, really unbearable and like you really feel like you can't see the light, it's really important to reach out to someone and just express what you're feeling at that moment. Because, again, we don't want somebody to come in and save us, but we do want somebody to kind of be there as a support system, and kind of getting those feelings out into the open, being comfortable enough to express, the pain, and that's really, really, really important. And actually, when I was going through the painful excruciating pain with the dog, I had actually reached out to Ricky, and I was like, oh my God, I mean, is there anything that you can just suggest? I was actually asking for help in that case, and I was like, is there anything you can suggest that I do? And because I was just really in a dark place, and I was really, really surprised at how much of a dark place it was over my pet. But again, it was that, we had this strong love connection. So that connection was broken. So of course I'm going to feel grief and feel really, really excruciating pain. So, I just wish Ricky would have been around back in the day, but he wasn't. He's there now though, which is amazing. So I had actually asked Ricky, like, what can I do? Like, is there any suggestions that you have for grief? And what Ricky recommended that I do is that I set up kind of like a little ceremony for the dog to kind of as like a send off in a sense. So I wrote a letter of all the things that I loved about her. I set up a little altar with her dog bone and her blanket and her food, and I had my crystals and candles. And what I did in that moment is I just prayed for healing. I prayed for the ability to think about her and not be sad and upset. I also prayed for to be sent a brand new dog to love, because I'm an animal person and I've had an animal in my life for so many years, and not having an animal in my life just really doesn't feel right. So I was kind of praying for the right dog to come along. And, that process, it was really, really powerful. And I meditated afterwards. And during my meditation, I just had this really, really strong urge to help heal other sick animals. And the crazy thing was, too, is that after I meditated, I pulled an angel card and I got the healer card. Of course. So the healer card says that you have to heal other animals or heal other people. Oh, thanks, Stephanie. Thank you. Yeah, it was really sweet. So as soon as I was done that process, I instantly felt like this huge weight had been lifted, and it was almost like I was instantly in the acceptance and hope phase. Like I was really, really in the pain stage, that excruciating pain. But all of a sudden, after doing this little ceremony, I was like, oh my God, I could talk about her without choking up. Like people were asking me about her, and I was fine. I could think about her and I wouldn't cry. So in that moment, shortly after, I gathered up all of her things. And I called the SPCA and I said, I have all these things here for a little dog. She was a Chihuahua, so she was quite tiny. So I had like beds and bones and food and a carrier and all that stuff. And I just asked if they were able to take any of that. And they said, oh, absolutely. So I had picked up my son from school, and we took money out of his donate jar and I matched it. So we brought a monetary value donation down with us. So we brought the money and we brought her things. And we gave it to the SPCA so some animals in need could use that stuff. And that was just it just felt so good and so right. And you take the pain and you just try to do something good with it, and that's really what I came up with, and that's really what I heard in my meditation, and I just went with it. And funny enough, when I know I wanted to tell you guys a story about synchronicity, and believe it or not, I actually have another story of synchronicity after this one. But when I was actually at the SPCA, my son had actually gone in to look at the cats, and the SPCA in our area, they very, very rarely have dogs. They always have cats or the occasional rabbit or something along those lines. So I just happened to ask while I was there. I said, you guys don't happen to get dogs down here, do you? And she goes, well, actually, we have a 4-pound Chihuahua that might need a home. I was like, say what? Excuse me? Yeah, we might have a 4-pound Chihuahua that needs a home. Okay. Well, if that Chihuahua needs a home, could you please call me? So it was just so strange that this, out of all things, there would be a Chihuahua at this SPCA that never ever has dogs, and we just put our Chihuahua down. It was quite crazy. So Charlene just said so much in this last half hour really resonates. Thank you so much for doing this topic, and it's just so personal. Hugs. Oh, Charlene, thank you. Thank you so much for watching. Seriously, I know it is a very, very painful painful subject. But if we do shine light on it, it just makes it a little bit easier to be kinder to ourselves during that process, to just feel it, to go through it, and to know that we can reach out and know that there's people that care. And, I felt really strongly to talk about this tonight. I feel also kind of for like my own healing as well. I think it's been really important for me to talk about it. But, we have to talk about the painful things. We do. We really do, because it brings normalcy to it. And with normalcy comes just the ability to be really, to just be able to get through it easier in a sense. So I know that I said I had another story about synchronicity. So I'm going to just explain that story as well. So when our dog died, we buried her with part of her blanket, her dog blanket. So, but we couldn't fit the whole dog blanket in the box. So what we did is my husband had cut a piece, and we brought the rest of the blanket home. So I wanted to have a little keepsake, because I had given all of her things away at this point, and I just wanted to have kind of like a little piece of something, just, I don't know, just anything. So I took the remaining piece of the blanket and I actually spread it out on the floor. And I said, I'm just going to cut like a little square of it, and I'll keep it in a special place somewhere. So when I put the blanket out on the floor, I could actually see that there was writing on the blanket. And it's so crazy, because I never noticed that there was any writing on it at all before. And I can't remember what it said, but at one point it had the word love in it. I was like, oh my God, that's so sweet. So what I did is I cut out the little section that said love, like this tiny little piece of blanket. And I like folded it up and I tucked it away. And, I was just like, just said, and I do this all the time. I talk to my angels, talk to my guides. And I was just really like, okay, I would really love to have a new dog in my life. So if there is, like, just send me a sign, because I didn't really want to like rush into the new dog. I just knew that a new dog would make an appearance in my world. I knew that was going to be the case, and that there was going to be a sign, because there always is with me. So, I remembered that one of my friends had actually rescued a dog from the Dominican Republic. There's a nonprofit organization in the Dominican Republic called Dogs and Cats of Dominican Republic. So what they do is they get veterinarians together, and they spay and neuter the animals, and they treat them for like fleas and things like that. So they have this big organization, and there's a lot of like stray dogs around there. So what they do is they try to they want people to adopt them. So I remember my friend saying that she went through this place and got this sweet little dog. So I went, I think I'm going to take a look on there and just see. I mean, I never looked into it before. So I went on their website, and then I was directed to their Facebook group that they have, and I went in there, and there was a little 12-week-old puppy, black and white, and her name is Love. And we're adopting her. So that was the sign that I needed, that this was the right dog. So she is going to be coming to live with us very soon. So isn't that crazy? Like, is that not a crazy story though? Tell me in the comments, what do you think? Like, I just, I prayed for a sign for the right dog, and there it was. It was just a beautiful, beautiful story of synchronicity. So I just wanted to, I know we've been talking about some heavy stuff, so I kind of wanted to end this evening with that story. I mean, it's just, it's just so heartwarming, you know? Like, when we go through so much pain, there's just like, there can be such good that happens as well, right? Like, it just blows my mind. It really does. So I think what I'm going to do now, thanks for the comments, you guys. I know, like, so wonderful. Like, what a synchronicity. There are no coincidences. No, absolutely not. Like, I know you have tears. Stephanie, I know. Seriously, it was... I cried too, and it's funny, I sent a message to the lady kind of explaining the story, and she's like, oh my god, she's like, the dog, she's yours. I mean, it's just meant to be. She's yours. And you know what? She's just the sweetest little dog, and totally different from our last dog, and our son is so excited, and we're really excited. So, you know, when one story ends, another one begins, and it's just so nice now to be in this stage of acceptance and hope with the whole grief thing. You know, I just really feel like, you know, I found life again. You know, life is just, it was bad there for a second, but it's better, and it's going to get better. And, you know, there's going to be challenges in life. There really are. I mean, that's what we're here for. It's an important part of our experience here. We're here to experience emotion because it's the only place we can experience emotion. So it's all set up to propel us towards something much greater. So it's just beautiful. And I think I'm going to pull an angel card. I must say, I'm rather impressed that I've been able to talk kind of nonstop for 40 minutes. The idea of doing a live video for an hour at one point was like, how in the world can I do that? I can't talk about something for almost an hour, and look at that. I almost did. So, all right, ladies, I am drawn to, or sorry, I don't know if there's any gentlemen watching. Sorry. Ladies and gentlemen, I am going to pull an angel card. And I was drawn to the daily guidance from your angels, oracle cards. I don't know why. It just felt like I needed to pull one of these ones. So we'll just have to see what the angels say about this whole situation. If anyone else has cards to pull, I know, Stephanie, you have some cards. Why don't you pull one out too? See what happens. Not to put you on the spot or anything, but, you know, it's always fun to pull angel cards. Angel cards make my life a million times happier. All right. So what do the angels want us to know right now? What do they want us to know? Awesome. I love when they like fall like right out of the deck. I don't know if anyone else does angel card read, but when I'm like shuffling, cards like fly out of the deck. It's kind of crazy. So 2 actually flew out of the deck. So wow. Beautiful. So this one flew out. Release and surrender. So let me just read what it says. So we shower you with blessings of our radiant love. Open your arms and release the challenges that you've held tightly gripped within your hands. Open your hands, arms, and heart to our love and assistance. All right. So let's dive a little deeper into what that means. So the angels bring this card to you because you've been trying to fix this situation single-handedly. They'd love to help you and answer your prayers, but first you need to surrender and release the situation. Surrender simply means that you're tired of struggling. It means emotionally letting go with faith that the divine wisdom of spirit, which includes your higher self, can do a better job. Surrender doesn't mean that you're giving up or that you want to be controlled. Through surrender, you'll be assured of a better outcome. If you need help with surrender, ask the angels to assist you. So additional meanings for it actually is, don't worry about how your prayer will be answered. Let God figure out the details. Be willing to ask for help. Release tension and the need to control, and things will go better. Avoid power struggles within your relationship. Simply own your power and you won't have to fight it. Oh, you got eternal love? Oh, I love that. Like, you can't make this stuff up, you guys. I know you've watched videos with Julia and I, and like, seriously, the cards are just the best thing ever. I mean, this is really, really powerful to get this release and surrender card right now, because just the story about the synchronicity, I mean, I literally had asked for help, and I surrendered to the idea that the right dog would appear. I just gave it up. I just, I knew that it would happen. Let's see, what did you get, Charlene? 9 of fire. Don't give up. Protect that which you created. Have courage and believe in yourself. Aww. I love it, you guys. That's so nice. It's heartwarming that you guys have some cards. Thank you so much for pulling them. And I just have to say, another card actually flew out too, which was the opportunity to forgive. Forgiveness. So let's just read real quick what, let's see. As I let love in, it stays in my soul forever. Oh, seriously though, that's beautiful. It's so true. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that, Stephanie. Awesome. So what does this, I just want to see real quick what this opportunity to forgive. So there's always an opportunity to forgive, right? So this one is, this situation brings you the opportunity to heal, grow, and release negative patterns. Hold the intention of seeing the other person's inner divine light and goodness. We will help you release unforgiving thoughts, feelings, and energies, and lift you to a higher place of peace and compassion. So if we dive a little bit deeper into what that is, it says the angels sent you this card because they see that you've grown wary of recurring negative pattern in your life. To break this cycle, it's important for you to release old toxic thoughts about the current situation and relationship. You can do this by breathing deeply, and on each exhale, I can't pronounce that word. That's funny. On each exhale, giving your fears, worries, anger, and other painful emotions to the angels. Forgiveness doesn't mean that you are condoning the other person's behavior. It just means that you're unwilling to carry toxic feelings and thoughts about him or her. Release, be free, and experience positive patterns through forgiveness. So some additional meanings for this card is avoid blaming yourself or others. As you release anger, a creative resolution to this situation will appear. There are hidden blessings in this relationship and situation. Focus upon desires instead of fears and judgments. Like, wow, are you kidding me? That's amazing. Like, these two cards just touch on basically a lot of the stuff that I was talking about. Wow. That's really, really powerful stuff right there. Like, avoid blaming yourself. And remember, I was talking earlier in one of the stages is, blame. We do blame. And I think it's really powerful for me to receive these cards tonight, and what a healing moment for me. And I just want to thank you guys for being here to kind of witness this, because that situation about the baby, I've never said out loud really in public to many people. I mean, obviously my husband knows, and I could probably count on 3 fingers the amount of people that actually know that story. And, I've actually got to the stage in my life where sharing is healing. And it was a story that I pushed so far in the back of my mind because it was so painful. And I never wanted to deal with it. But now just being on this spiritual journey and understanding the value that your story has and the value that a story can bring to other people's lives. It's just really, really special to be in this moment right now with you guys, because I didn't forgive myself for a long time for that situation. But now I can. I forgive myself. I don't blame myself anymore. I found life again, and life is beautiful. I've released, I surrendered, and I forgave, and I forgave myself, because it was not forgiving myself, which was the big problem. So, thank you. Thank you all for being here and for watching this video. I made it for 50 minutes. I spoke for 50 minutes. That's always a great thing. So I'm just going to wait a minute just in case anyone has any other comments. But I'm done. I'm done with everything that I wanted to say tonight. What I will do is I'll put the stages of grief actually above this video. I'll just edit where it says conscious living of grief, and I'll put the 7 stages of grief in there, just in case you want to go back and just review what those were, because I know I went through them, a little quickly, I guess, but I just want you to be able to go through those, reflect back on them, and and I just want you to know that if you are, if there's any time you're going through a grieving process, again, please reach out. In this community, we have so many wonderful, wonderful people. You can reach out to me, you can reach out to the other coaches, you could reach out to other people within this group. It's a group of like-minded people that really do care about your well-being. And just know that you're never alone in this situation, and no one's going to try to save you. People are just going to be there to just support you. So thank you so much. Oh, you're welcome, Stephanie. Oh my gosh, Jessica, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for your loss. I really am. And again, I'm going to put those stages of grief actually back up above the video, so you'll be able to kind of refer back to those and just understand the stages that you're in the grieving process, and hopefully it will just make things run a little bit smoother. So lots of loving thoughts to you, Jessica, for sure. Hugs. So sorry to hear it. So well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I always say ladies because I just assume that there's always just ladies watching, and I shouldn't do that. So just thank you, everyone, for watching, and I hope you all have a great night. See you later.